Tumbler Ridge struggling in the spotlight this Friday night. How heartbroken families want their loved ones remembered.
She just wanted to bring sunshine to everyone and everything she ever touched.
As federal and provincial leaders arrive in the tight-knit community. The vilification and misinformation spreading about trans people following the Tumbler Ridge shooting.
There's fear around different identities.
We'll fact-check the baseless claims being made. Potential backtracking. Why the U.S. president is reportedly reconsidering those harsh tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. And from perseverance to podium placements and sudden engagements.
I feel like it's bringing together my two loves.
Some uplifting tales from the Winter Olympics.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. There is unity in the face of grief tonight in the town of Tumbler Ridge, BC, as the community reels from the devastating mass shooting that claimed 8 innocent lives earlier this week. The country mourns with them. The Prime Minister arrived in Tumbler Ridge today, along with all federal party leaders, putting aside their political differences to give condolences and grieve with the community. They, along with the BC Premier and provincial officials, will be taking part in a large vigil this evening. 12-year-olds Kylie Smith, Abel Mwansa Jr., Takaria Lampert and Zoe Benoit were among those killed on Tuesday. So was 13-year-old Ezekiel Schofield. All of them died in their school, as did 39-year-old education assistant Shonda Avigana Durant. The suspect's mother, 39-year-old Jennifer Jacobs, and stepbrother, 11-year-old Emmett Jacobs, were killed in their home. 2 more victims are in hospital in Vancouver. 12-year-old Maya Gabala, who is in serious condition, and 19-year-old Paige Hoekstra. The shooter, 18-year-old Jessie Van Rootselaar, took her own life. We go now to Chris Galis in Tumbler Ridge, who has more tonight on the aftermath of this tragedy. Chris.
Hello, Colleen, and thank you. Yes, and as you mentioned, this community is still struggling to come to grips with the horror that unfolded 3 days ago in Tumbler Ridge. Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where it all happened, is still behind police tape. 5 children and an educator, as you pointed out, gunned down there on Tuesday. People in town have been gathering at makeshift memorials, remembering those who were killed. But there's also been an outpouring of support within the community and, of course, beyond it from across the country, especially with the arrival today of federal leaders. The vigil tonight is an opportunity for everybody to come together for some collective healing. And as you can see behind Heather and I, Heather's been here all week as well doing some of the coverage here. People are starting to filter in, and already we're into at least a couple of hundred, maybe close to 300 people. All right, Heather, you've been here all week. You know and have learned a lot about this community since you've been here. They're a resilient bunch, but they are hurting.
They are hurting. This is one of the friendliest communities I have ever encountered, but the media attention has been overwhelming, and people are really looking forward to seeing the spotlight start to fade away.
A protective barrier now wraps around a memorial of flowers and toys in the center of Tumbler Ridge as the small mountain community struggles to grieve in such a public way. Though the media attention has been a source of frustration, Friday's visit by Prime Minister Mark Carney and all federal party leaders to the town is being welcomed.
I was a little bit nervous about it, but I think I'm actually kind of glad to see the whole country pulling together.
It transcends any political views you have with. I mean, they're all coming together for the first time in a long time, and it shows just the impact this is having.
In an update on its investigation Friday, the RCMP say they still do not know how the shooter obtained the 4 firearms found across the 2 crime scenes Tuesday.
In speaking with investigators, there was no specific targeting of any individuals. This suspect was, for lack of a better term, hunting. They were prepared and engaging anybody and everybody they could come in contact with.
In a statement, the estranged biological father of the shooter offered condolences to the victims. "I cannot begin to imagine the depth of your grief," Justin Van Rootselaar said.
It's really hard to breathe right now.
The mother of one of Tuesday's youngest victims, 12-year-old Takaria Lampert, says everything is difficult now. Through her grief, Sarah Lampert faced a crush of cameras to ensure her little tiki torch would be known.
She was a dork of all dorks.
She had a Santa sack of every bad dad joke you could think of. She was whoever and whatever someone needed. She was everything, especially to me.
Other families have asked for time and space as they come to terms with crushing losses, while a devastated community tries to carry on.
All right, we had a snippet in that report of the RCMP media presser that they had today where they revealed a little bit more about the firearms that are connected to this crime and the state of the investigation, Heather.
Yeah, we knew that before this shooting that police had seized a number of firearms from the shooter's home and that those firearms had been subsequently returned. Now, investigators say that the firearms, the guns used in Tuesday's shooting had never been seized before by RCMP. And as you heard, RCMP still do not know how the shooter obtained these weapons. We also learned that the 8 autopsies on the victims are expected to be completed this weekend.
All right, Heather, thanks very much for your coverage this week. Appreciate it. All right, I had a chance today to speak with David Eby, the Premier of BC, who had just come out of a meeting with an educator, a teacher, and a child who had survived the attack. The teacher had tried to render aid to a child who died. Here's his comments about that meeting.
I'm literally coming out of a sit-down with a teacher at the school who did CPR on a dying child, and a couple of kids who survived and thought they were a boy who thought he was gonna die. And you know, the trauma here is very real in the community, and you know, it's interesting because you go from crying to laughing to I'm just visiting this town, and people are going to have to live with this for a while here.
And as more information emerges about the shooter, Jesse Van Rootselaar, there's concern tonight from the transgender community that gender identity is becoming a big part of the discussion around this crime, and the discourse has turned toxic. So as Jillian Piper reports, advocates say that they are very worried about a rise in anti-trans sentiment.
As Tumbler Ridge is grieving unimaginable loss, some community members are urging Canadians to resist division.
This is really a time to put that away and to really think about compassion and love and really making those changes, not to attack groups.
But since the RCMP identified trans teen Jesse Van Rootselaar as the suspect in the mass shooting, anti-trans rhetoric has run rampant, even though there is currently no evidence to suggest Van Rootselaar's gender identity is linked to the crime.
It's too early to say whether that has any correlation in this investigation.
Trans people are substantially more likely to be victims rather than perpetrators of violent crimes.
There's fear around different identities. What we know is that people don't do these things because of their individual identity.
In the wake of the tragedy, BC MLA Tara Armstrong baselessly claimed so-called transgender ideology is radicalizing youth and unlocking violent impulses. A day later, the BC Human Rights Commissioner said she is disappointed by the spread of anti-trans disinformation. Using this horrific incident to conflate trans identities with violent tendencies is incorrect, irresponsible, and frankly dangerous.
Reducing the truth down to one aspect of somebody's identity, whether it's their gender, their race, pulling one aspect out of context, that's not about seeking truth.
Between 32 to 41% of trans people are estimated to have attempted suicide in their lifetimes due to stigma and discrimination, something a now-removed Reddit account, JessieBoy347, appearing to belong to Van Rootselaar, described. "It really hurts. I am genuinely considering taking my own life." The suspect's mother posted on social media a few years ago in support of her child's identity, urging an end to trans hate, Chris. Since the shooting, that post has been flooded with comments chastising her support for the trans community, just days after she lost her life in the mass shooting.
Jillian Piper in Ottawa, thanks very much, Jillian. And we want you to know that if you or someone you know needs help, you can call or text 988 to reach Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline. Help is available in English and in French 24 hours a day, every day. Now, I'll be back from Tumbler Ridge, BC a little bit later with more on the vigil and the large crowd that continues to grow here at Town Hall in Tumbler Ridge. But for now, back to the National News Desk with the remaining news of the day and Colleen Christie. Colleen?
Thank you, Chris. There are reports U.S. President Donald Trump is preparing to scale back some tariffs on steel and aluminum products. It would be a rare concession from Trump, who made tariffs his signature policy. As Jackson Prosco reports, there's growing evidence they're taking a toll on American consumers ahead of critical midterm elections in November.
Rarely one to back down, President Donald Trump may at least be rethinking some of his hefty tariffs on steel and aluminum products, according to a report in the Financial Times.
If anything is done, I think it would be sort of clarification on some incidental objects.
The White House dismissed the report as baseless speculation, but an official told Global News the tariffs were always designed to be nimble and nuanced, implying room for adjustment.
But the practical reality of the last 6 months is that actually the Trump administration has been quietly removing some tariffs. They don't like to talk about it that much.
Trump imposed tariffs of up to 50% on steel and aluminum last year and expanded them to products made with those materials, like appliances. Those products are taxed based on their metal content, a system nearly impossible to enforce.
Even if the administration wants to keep some steel and aluminum tariffs in place, they could more effectively craft a tariff regime that actually exempted a bunch of these other kinds of products.
Even as inflation cools, pressure to address the broader impacts of tariffs is growing ahead of November's midterm elections. A study from the New York Federal Reserve found nearly 90% of the tariff's economic burden fell on U.S. businesses and consumers.
But if inflation ticks up again, then there's going to be a problem that these tariffs are actually causing this, and people will take it out on the Republicans.
Despite all the evidence, Trump continues to insist foreign nations are paying the duties and seems unlikely to bend unless he absolutely has to.
Do you agree then that Americans are paying those tariffs?
I think, no, I don't agree.
But the biggest test of Trump's tariff policy is still to come. In the coming weeks, the U.S. Supreme Court will rule on the legality of most of Trump's tariffs and could strike them down entirely. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The Supreme Court took the rare step today of overturning the 2025 election results in the Montreal area riding of Terrebonne. Last April, the Liberals won there by just one vote over the Bloc Québécois. The Bloc asked the courts for a new election after it discovered one of their supporters had her mail-in ballot rejected through no fault of her own. The Supreme Court agreed with the Bloc, setting in motion the process for a by-election. There are now 3 vacant seats, but regardless of the by-election outcomes, it will remain a Liberal minority government. Overcoming Olympic-sized odds and obstacles. Coming up, how some athletes made it to the podium when it seemed so unlikely. Canada's men's hockey team has put up another win at the Olympics. They beat Switzerland 5-1 today with goals from captain Sidney Crosby and Macklin Celebrini. The women are gearing up for their quarterfinal matchup against Germany on Saturday. Captain Marie-Philippe Poulin was back on the ice today for practice and could be ready to return from an injury that sidelined her in the last game. Mike Armstrong is in Italy covering the Olympics. Tonight, he looks at some of the standout and inspiring performances so far.
Norwegian skier Jonas Kleibo's resume is almost surreal. Friday morning, the 29-year-old crossed the line first in the men's 10-kilometer freestyle cross-country race. It was his 3rd medal of these Olympics and the 8th of his career. Every one of them gold. Over on the slopes, a story of resilience from the host Italians. Federica Brignone won the Super G Thursday. It was the 4th Olympic medal of her career, but that's not what's most impressive. This was Brignone just 10 months ago. She broke her leg in multiple places and needed 2 surgeries and months of rehab. After winning, Brignone said there were times when she thought she'd never ski again. Now, an American in that same race crashed, Breezy Johnson, but there was a nice surprise at the bottom of the mountain. Johnson's boyfriend proposed, although it may not have been completely unexpected.
I had told him that I always kind of dreamed of getting engaged at the Olympics. I feel like it's bringing together my 2 loves, which are ski racing and him.
Now, a story of inspiration from another Italian this week. Skier Giovanni Franzoni won a silver medal in downhill. One of Franzoni's close friends was killed last year in training. He says that's part of what pushed him.
To try to do my best every day, not only for me, but also for him. And
enjoying every day because we don't know if it's the last or not.
And finally, a Canadian story of resilience. Diana Stellato-Dudek and her partner Maxime Deschamps have now arrived in Milan. Stellato-Dudek was injured training in Quebec. For a time, it didn't look like she'd make the games. She's not giving details on the injury, but says it wasn't a concussion. She missed 3 days of training and delayed their trip to Italy. Well, their competition kicks off Sunday, and at 42 years old, Stellato-Dudek is set to become the oldest competitor in figure skating history. Colleen, she was actually retired from the sport for more than 15 years.
Unbelievable. Mike Armstrong in Italy. Thanks, Mike. I had more Epstein files fallout with the former UK ambassador to the US asked to testify to Congress.
Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
NASA launched a crew of 4 astronauts to the International Space Station today to get it back to full staffing again. The ISS has been operating on a skeleton crew after NASA's Crew 11 was forced to return early last month over a medical emergency. Crew 12, made up of 2 NASA astronauts, a French astronaut, and a Russian cosmonaut, are taking their place on an 8-month research mission. The list of political and business leaders facing questions about their ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein continues to grow 2 weeks after the latest release of documents. Today, former UK ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, was asked to testify before Congress. Vincent McAviney reports from London.
On Friday, 2 Democrat congressmen wrote to former British US ambassador Peter Mandelson, asking him to answer questions from the US House of Representatives Oversight Committee as part of their ongoing investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It's not a subpoena nor a demand to travel to Washington, D.C. They're simply requesting he submit to a transcribed interview by committee staff on Epstein's crimes. There will be pressure for Mandelson to comply, but so far he's not responded. Meanwhile, British police continue to investigate the former Prince, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, over allegations of misconduct in public office for passing on sensitive government papers to Epstein. Further email evidence has come to light suggesting Andrew may have also been exploiting his role as a UK trade ambassador to build a lucrative business with Epstein. Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown is also calling on police to question the King's brother over allegations Epstein's private plane was used to traffic women in and out of the UK. In Norway, the country's former Prime Minister Torbjørn Jagland has been charged with gross corruption over his ties with Epstein. He's denied criminal liability. In Dubai, Sultan bin Sulayem, the boss of DP, one of the world's biggest logistics companies, has been forced to step down over his ties with Epstein. The files include emails between the pair discussing women, and one to Sulayem from Epstein, in which he said, "I loved the torture video."
I was never there.
On Thursday, US President Donald Trump denied again that he ever visited Epstein's Caribbean island after his Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was forced to admit to a visit with his family. While Trump is mentioned in the released files more than any other individual, so far occupying the Oval Office is shielding him from the repercussions. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
We are heading back to Chris Galis in Tumbler Ridge, BC, where the community, joined by federal and provincial leaders, will hold a vigil for the victims. That's next.
Welcome back. I'm Chris Galis here in Tumbler Ridge, BC, a community that is shattered by what happened 3 days ago at Tumbler Ridge Secondary. It is now on a path navigating itself through grief and ultimately, hopefully, through healing. Eric Sorensen has more on the day that changed everything and how this community is coping.
This could have been any school anywhere in Canada. In scenic Tumbler Ridge, BC, a sickening reality that was, until now, unimaginable.
It sounded like construction or something, and then we heard screams. Like it's Tumbler, like, it just doesn't feel real.
The tarp shielded us from what the children, the staff, and first responders faced and must live with.
Why?
There are no words to explain, no words to truly comfort the families of the victims, including 6 children killed: Ezekiel 13, Emmett 11, and 12-year-olds Abel, Kylie, Zoe, and Takaria.
Tiki was her name. Takaria.
Sarah Lampert brought pictures of her daughter Tiki. She wanted the world to know who and what has been lost.
She just wanted to bring sunshine to everyone and everything she ever touched.
Parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love.
On Friday, a rare sight, Canada's national leaders together 4,000 kilometers from the nation's capital. In kinship, a nation embracing a community as a community embraces its families in their time of deepest sorrow.
I can hold my child. My neighbor can't hold her child.
We now have to figure out how to live life without her. And there's just nothing and no one that can fill that gap.
In a town that calls itself a dream destination, there are so many questions, but there are no answers that can ease the pain. If healing is even possible, it will take time.
And that is Global National for this Friday night from Tumbler Ridge, BC, a community united in grief, but so thankful for the outpouring of support that it has received from across the country and around the world. And especially this example in Ontario, where grades 7 and 8 students at Terrace Bay Public School made this giant heart in the snow. Thanks for watching.